Michelle, so good to see you. So good to see you, and thanks a lot for spending your evening joining the program. And I really inspired by the transformation that you got through the tough time, but then you make it the best time out of your life. And like I say, it's an opportunity for us to celebrate and to share the works that you do, the journey that you've been through, so that people out there, when they hear your story, they find the things in common, and then they can learn from you. They can find the motivation and inspiration to make change in their lives. And thanks a lot for spending your evening doing this meaningful works with me. Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me and for including me in all of these inspirational podcasts that you share with the world.
And Michelle, let's start by a little introductions first. Okay, in our culture, it's very honor for our audience if we can have you to share a little bit about yourself and the work that you are doing now. Would you be able to do that for us?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a career coach, and I specialize in career transition and leadership coaching, which means that for some of the clients that I work with, they have, in some cases, they have found themselves out of work very suddenly. It might be a company restructuring where their job has been eliminated and they need to find work very quickly. I also work with a number of clients who are employed. They have, in some cases, very well-paying jobs, and they're looking to leave those well-paying jobs to find something that's a better fit. It might be doing different work altogether. In some cases, it might be doing the same work, but for a different company, maybe a company that their values align more closely with the individuals. And so with those individuals, I help both of them really navigate the job market and really try to engage in a job search. So I help with everything from clarifying what they want to do next to creating a job search strategy with them. I help them with their marketing, like the resume and LinkedIn profile, make sure that they're telling the right career story about themselves. And then I help them with interview preparation and even just getting out in the community, sharing their name and that they're looking for work, doing some networking. So that's all the work that I do with career transition. And then with leadership coaching, I have the privilege of working with leaders at various levels of an organization. It could be a brand new leader who has never had individuals reporting to them, and I help them navigate that shift to working within a team, to leading the team. But other cases, I'm working with leaders who have been leaders for many years, who are looking to develop some competencies to just help them be more effective, to help them lead and motivate and inspire their team, maybe even help them get them through some really tough changes. I mean, the last 3 years, we've all been going through a lot of changes, certainly with the pandemic. And so I help to support leaders become more effective in their roles. So I love that work that I do. I'm really truly rewarded by the progress of other people, and just to see somebody when they come to you that maybe they're stuck in the beginning, maybe they've tried some things and it hasn't really worked out and they need a conversation partner to help them, and to see them make headway in whatever challenge or goal that they want to meet is really rewarding. To see them feel fulfilled in a new job, to see them feel more confident in their leadership abilities. And so I've been doing that work for 8 years now.
Yeah,
Hard to believe.
Michelle, we believe that every beautiful destination start by a baby step of walking at the beginning, right? And in this conversation, we're gonna explore how that journey take place for you at the beginning. All right. And so let's travel time together, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
All right.
I feel like I need like a time travel capsule.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I was young, and unfortunately, Vivian is not here, but when she was young, she wanted to become a singer. When I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut, right? But neither of us was able to do the works that we wanted to do. and then life took us in different directions, and we do a different job and take into a different path, right? So we want to know the little girl Michelle when she was young. What was her dream about her future?
I mean, it's such a great question, and I mean, it's funny because as a young girl, I didn't really have those aspirations. I would say that those developed more when I got older, like to a teenager. So it may even sound strange. I mean, right now it sounds so strange because it's so opposite to what I'm doing now. But when I was in high school, I wanted to be an accountant because I loved accounting. I remember specifically in high school, I had this fabulous accounting teacher, and I really loved her style. She inspired me to love accounting, and so I thought, wouldn't that be cool to be an accountant? And so when it was time for me to start picking my university courses, I chose a business program that I really want to get into from multiple schools. And because my math marks were not very high, I didn't get into the business program to study accounting. So all of a sudden, I thought, oh, that was what I wanted to do. And now my plan was completely different. And so I needed to think about, well, if I couldn't be in a business program and be an accountant, well, what am I going to take? What am I going to do? And one of the other subjects I really loved all throughout school was English. And so I decided to major in English, but minor in business. So I could still study those business courses, even though I couldn't get into a business program. And, it's funny, like in hindsight, even though I wanted to get into accounting, my math marks really stood in my way. And what changed after that was I wasn't majoring in business. I was majoring in the arts. And I found like that just set me on a whole other path. Like it did take me away from accounting, but that turned out to be fine because, I actually right out of university, I started working in customer service. I worked for a bank that I worked my summers in. And I eventually got into human resources. And then I got into learning and development, which is training. And so part of what I was doing was designing training programs. So I was using my degree, my English skills to do some different things. So I realized when I couldn't get into the business program I wanted, I was quite disappointed at that time because I felt like it was taking me away from something I wanted to do. But then, things really have a way of working out. And I really do believe in the universe delivering and in fate. It was obviously not my destiny to be an accountant, but it was my destiny to get into, another path. And the interesting thing is, from the bank that I worked at for 18 years, I lost my job. So I was restructured. My position was eliminated because of a large company restructuring. And that was career transition number one. And, I experienced another career transition after that. It led me to do this work. Like, I almost think of it like a much larger puzzle with lots of pieces, and it's like everything that you do in your life fits into that puzzle in some way. Even if you don't feel like the pieces fit right away, that unfolds. The puzzle becomes solved. You're able to get in all of those pieces, and it's not bad that you can't, get your dream the way that you thought about it. Sometimes things are just meant to be, to take you into another sphere of work, another path altogether. And I feel like that's what happened for me. It wasn't linear. It wasn't like it started in one place and then everything followed after that. My career has gone through lots of twists and turns, as yours has as well. And it's exciting when you reflect back on the tapestry that's been woven through all of those experiences. It becomes really quite rich and dynamic. And when you reflect back, you think, you know what? Like, I realize now it's okay I didn't get into business because I guess I just was not meant to be an accountant.
Yeah.
And I realize that now. I was not meant to be an accountant. But at the time, I thought I should be.
And you know what? If there is the linear in the experience journey, then that journey is so boring. The ups and downs with in that experience journey will give us a lot of stories so that we can tell our loved ones and then the people around us. It make our life richer in terms of experiments and a lot of things, right? So I feel like you took you was serious, well, because not getting to accountant, but after that you realize that the world's not gonna end because of that, right? And you transform it to the next direction, accepting it. So in your life it also happened, you mentioned twice that there was two times that you got into a career transition. So it's similar in terms of the experience. Tell us how you feel back then.
Yeah. I remember at the time of my first restructuring, because I've lost my job 2 times in my career. So the first time I'd say was probably the most, I don't know, like impactful experience, memorable experience for me, because at the time I lost my job, through restructuring, I had been with that company for 18 years.
Wow.
Like from high school. I mean, it was a bank actually. So I started my career in financial services, and when I lost my job, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I really felt lost because, first of all, I'd been with this company for my entire career. Like I basically didn't know any other job experiences except for that one, unless you count, when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, I worked out of my church office, actually. That was a fun job. Learned a lot, actually, but that was the only other job I had, and then babysitting. But this was the first big job that I had. So when I lost that job, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I sure didn't know what company I wanted to work with. And I didn't know really how to find a job. Like I never really had to do that. And certainly not for a long period of time. So I was very lucky when I was restructured the first time. I was given a career transition package. Oh. And what that package gave me was access to somebody like me, like a career coach that was going to give me a soft landing, that was going to be with me while I was looking for work. This person was not going to do the work for me, but she gave me like the structures and activities and a path forward that helped me understand what I needed to do to find work. And so as much as I was lost in the beginning, having somebody to work with offered me great comfort and a lot of knowledge too. I mean, she gave me insight into how the job market works, how I need to write my resume, how I position my experiences in an interview. I mean, I hadn't interviewed since like the early days of my career because, when you've been with the company for a long period of time, you just get jobs because people know you. But I had never had to interview or compete for jobs. Like it had been a long time. So I remember like there was a whole lot of discouragement, frustration, depression too. Like I would say there were moments where I really did feel very depressed about my situation because in my head I thought, okay, I don't know if I'm ever going to find a job because this is taking a long time. This is hard work. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere. What I didn't know, or what I wasn't really, I guess, able to see at that time was that even though it seemed like my job search was going nowhere, every single activity that I did was a step forward. Yeah. So like making some changes to my resume, step forward. Looking online for jobs and applying, step forward. Reaching out and asking somebody to go to coffee and talk about the company that they work with and how I can possibly get in, step forward. So I just needed to see that, although I didn't have a job yet, there were a lot of things that I was doing. It was just taking a long time, and it was all about baby steps. So I remember what it felt like to see a job and be so excited about the job, and I'd apply, and then I wouldn't get an interview. And then I also remember what it felt like to get the interview, go to the interview and think, okay, I nailed that. Like, that went really well, and I didn't get the job. So there was a lot of disappointment and frustration that went with it. And when I started having conversations with people that I'm going to say gave me some hope, like gave me some positive feedback, gave me some information that was going to help in my job search, then I could see that, yes, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I wasn't there yet, but also how I was feeling in that moment was not going to be my forever place. Yeah. I was not going to forever be looking for work. Like, eventually it was going to happen. And so I had to keep telling myself that, even though I'm not there yet, I'm not stuck. There are things that I can do to keep advancing my job search. I felt very, very fortunate. I had a really supportive network that I had to reach out and ask for help from numerous times. And they all responded very positively. So even though the feelings were negative in the beginning, slowly I started to see that there was some hope and excitement to be able to find a job that would allow me to do work that really gave me energy, but also for a company that had the same value system as me, that believed the same things that I believed in. And I tell my clients that, like, very early on in my work with them, like especially the career transition clients, I will share with them that I've experienced career transition twice, and I've reinvented myself both times. And I know what it feels like to be in a job search and feel all the feelings that go with that. There's a whole range of emotions that come with looking for work. For some people, it's shame as well. Shame that they lost their job, shame that they have to look for something. And those things can stand in your way. Yeah. So those are, I let my clients know I can empathize with where you are, because I've been in that place myself.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I'm seeing in the near future there will be a lot of people will be in the transition again for their jobs, and I hope that they will have the networks that supporting them. They have the people that helping them to make the steps forward, like you say, and then not feeling lonely in the journey, because it's not there yet. It's not in the foreverness of having no job, right? I want to bring you to the second transition, because that is where the huge step you took forward into doing the amazing thing that you are doing now. So tell us about that second transition and how you feel back then.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, when I reflect back on both of those experiences, the first time I was in a transition, it was so monumental because I had never experienced it before. I didn't know what to expect. Some of the feelings I experienced were a bit of a surprise to me. The second time, I knew a bit more. Certainly I was older and I was wiser, maybe, that I knew how to approach a job search. Still, when you find out that your job is not going to be there anymore, it's not a pleasant feeling at all. It's not something that you want to hear. So it still was uncomfortable for me, because the second transition, when I left the banking world after the first restructure, I entered the not-for-profit world, and I worked for the Canadian Cancer Society here. So I was working with volunteers who supported cancer patients, people living with cancer. They all had their own story. Some of them were cancer survivors themselves. Some of them were caregivers, or they just have had cancer in their family. And at that time too, I was working part-time. So I've got 2 kids. So they're 14 and 16. But, at the time I finished with the Canadian Cancer Society, I'm thinking they were what? They were 5 and 7, I guess, they were still really young. So, it was uncomfortable to find out that, the company needed to trim positions. So it wasn't just me that was let go. There was a number of us that were let go. So there were some waves of restructuring. And I remember feeling, disappointed, because I really enjoyed this job. It allowed me to work part-time and be at home with my kids and work. And I was working with all these amazing volunteers that really did have these awesome stories about why they were there. But the one thing I'm so grateful for was I knew before it was going to happen. So I could see all the telltale signs that made me uncomfortable the first time it happened. I thought, this sounds and looks and feels very familiar. So I remember asking my leader, I just asked her point blank, should I be looking for work? And she said yes. She gave me a heads up of what was going to come. So I felt more prepared the second time around, because my leader, and she didn't have to do that. She, probably in hindsight, if anybody knew, she probably shouldn't have done it. She would probably be told that. But she also was a leader with a lot of compassion, and she saw that I already saw the writing on the wall. So she wanted to make sure that I was prepared. So I spent the next 2 months cleaning up all of my stuff, winding down all of my projects, giving work, to volunteers and staff that needed to do. I was literally on my last day, I had no work left. Everything had been, parceled off. So I felt comfortable about how I was leaving, but what was still uncomfortable was, what was I going to do? I thought, I don't know what, do I stay in not-for-profit? I'd really like to work part-time. But one thing that happened a year before I found out I was losing my job, and this was pivotal. I really think that this was a turning point. A very good friend of mine, my friend Val, she is a coach. And we were chatting one day. This was a year before I lost my job the second time. And she said, I never understood why you didn't get into coaching as a career. And at the time, I was working for the Cancer Society. I had this great part-time job working with all those volunteers. And I said, well, I'm not looking to leave. I'm quite happy actually where I am. But I never forgot about what she said. So I kind of took that and tucked it back there, didn't forget about it altogether. And then when I found out from my leader, when she said, yes, you should be looking for work, it brought back like a flood that conversation with my coaching friend Val. And I thought, maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the universe telling me you should really look into coaching. You've got the time now. Maybe this is the opportunity to pursue. So I didn't lose out on that opportunity. So I looked for work, and because I had been through a big transition before, I knew how to write my resume. I knew where to look for jobs. I knew how to interview. I felt very confident the second time around actually embarking on my job search. But I added a layer to my search. Not only was I looking for work, I started having conversations with coaches. I started networking with coaches, and I reached out to different coaches who were in all sorts of different specialties. One was a money coach, one, was a health and wellness coach. A few of them were doing what I'm doing now, career coaching, leadership coaching. And I just talked to people about why did you get into coaching? What are some of the problems you work with clients on? Why do they come to you? What are the rewards of being in coaching? What are the challenges, certainly? And so then I started realizing through all that networking, you know what, like maybe this is something I want to do more of. And one of the people that I networked with turned out later on to be the teacher for my first level of coaching certification. And she was friends with a friend of mine.
Ah,
And so, like, that you know how the network works, right? It's magical. The network delivers, and the network is like massive. It's huge, right? So I got connected to this woman, Anne, and I remember having a conversation in her backyard. And I said, I explained, I'm looking at coaching as a possibility. And she said to me as we were talking, like we were talking for a bit, and then she said to me, just point blank, she said, you don't need anybody to tell you what to do next. She said, you know what the answer is. And I said, I know, like, why am I looking for people to validate this? Like, I know I want to do this. And so, hers was the last conversation I had with coaches, and I just registered for my first level of coaching certification. I did find a part-time job, actually working, it was an amazing job, working in public health for Ottawa, because I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and did a stint with Ottawa Public Health while I was doing my first level of coaching certification, and realized probably after, I don't know, the first third of the program, that I didn't want to do coaching on the side of my desk, like a piece of my job. I wanted it to be my job.
wow.
And so when I graduated, I very fortunate, again, stars are aligned, the universe delivers. I got into a small business startup program that was funded by our provincial government, and it was the very last cohort. So this program had been going and helping small business owners get their start for, I think it was like 21 years or something like that. And as soon as I got accepted in, they said, we're cutting the program. You guys are the last ones. So stars were aligned a second time. Like, oh my gosh, how did I get in this program? Like, what if I waited a year? What if I delayed what I was thinking? And I thought, oh, maybe I'll just work a year and then I'll get into coaching. I would have missed the boat on this fantastic opportunity to get my business started. So I owe a lot to, it was called the Ontario Small Business Program, and it doesn't exist now, but I felt really lucky that I could benefit from it. And the rest is history. The small business program allowed me to start up my practice. I started with 0 clients, like 0, and worked my way building a business, quite literally one client at a time, one conversation at a time, one networking coffee at a time. I remember drinking a lot of coffee in those first 2 years of getting my business started, meeting with people and like finding out, what their needs were, what their challenges were, talking about the services that I offer. I did a lot of that. But that's, career transition led me to coaching. Like being restructured 2 times in my career led me to doing what I'm doing now. And so, I joke that, like when I started coaching, I was 46. So I'm going to be 54 in July. So that will be 7 years. Is that right? Yeah. And, I joke that, at age 46, I knew what I would do when I grew up.
What day in July?
Oh, what, my birthday?
Yeah.
Oh, July 3rd.
July 3rd. So right before the Independence Day of the US, right? July 3rd.
And 2 days after Canada Day in Canada. So yes, it's like a busy first week in July. Yeah, lots of celebrations going on.
Wow. Michelle, I'll make sure that we will release this episode on your birthday. So I know that on calendar.
That'd be like a gift.
And now go back to what Val talked to you and the coach, right? And we have thousands of conversations, and then her message, the conversation that she told you that why don't you becoming a coach, right? it stick in the
Yeah.
back of your head, and it stick there, it stay there until one day later on that you reactivate that message. So out there we have a lot of conversations, and then how that conversation stick inside of you. What motivates you back then to keep it and store it in your head though?
That's such a great question. It's funny. That's the first time I've been asked that. That's a great
Ah.
question. I would say what motivated me to hang on to that golden nugget of advice and guidance, as opposed to just disposing of it or forgetting about it, is because I think like it rang true for me. Like and my friend Val knows me very well. And so when she said, and she had that insight, like, I think you would be a great coach someday, I value that guidance. It wasn't like, somebody on the street just saying, I think you'd be a great coach. It's like, that would mean nothing to me if that happened. But when somebody in your life who knows you well, knows you deeply, says that, I had to kind of stop and think, like, okay, what are the reasons she's saying that? And so when I kind of did the rewind of my whole career, I realized actually I had been coaching for years before that, but not formally. So I say early in my career that I was coaching with a small C, and now I coach with a big C, meaning I have a methodology, I have a structure. But back then, I was just doing what came naturally. And so, when I was working in financial services at the bank, before I was let go after 18 years, I was working with and leading a team of training coordinators. And so I was coaching and developing them for years as a team. And then when I moved to the Canadian Cancer Society, I was coaching and developing a team of volunteer trainers. So something similar, but different application. I was still doing a lot of developmental work. And she even said to me, she said, Michelle, like, people come to you for guidance and advice, like, all the time. Like, well, what do you think about this? Or, help me better understand this, or what insights do you have about this path? Like, people would ask me questions, or they'd say, I have this problem at work. Like, what do I do? So people were already tapping into my own guidance and experience and expertise way before I got into coaching. So when I did the replay of all of those experiences that I had already had, I realized that in a number of them, I was coaching in a small way. And so she saw the potential to take that to the next level. And it was amazing when almost as soon as I found out I was losing my job for the second time, it was like that conversation came out of a chest or something. Like there was a unlock of it, and it all just kind of came out right at that moment. Like I wasn't consciously thinking about it for a long time before that, but at the moment that opportunity presented itself, like, okay, this is another time where you're going to be hitting the pause button on your career and deciding what you want to do next. It made sense to start exploring it.
Wow.
It wasn't the right time when my friend first mentioned it, but all of a sudden the timing changed. And so now the opportunity was one that I really needed to explore. It didn't mean that I was going to get into coaching. I just felt like I should give it some energy to explore it and reflect on it and see if there's something there, and not rush it. As you know, the best things in life that we become aware of, or decisions that we made, the best ones are not rushed. They come from a grounded place where you've done some deep reflection. And when the decision comes from a grounded place, it's the right one. And when I decided in the backyard of the person who eventually was going to become my coaching teacher, and she said, you don't need anybody to tell you, like, you know what to do, it just hit me. And I do know what to do.
That's what Anne say, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Michelle,
it hit me.
yeah, I when in your career before becoming a coach, right? You were coaching with the lowercase, the small c, and then
Yeah.
when you invest to become a coach, you start to have, this the capital C, the big C, and that. But
Yeah.
then you make the whole coaching all capital by another moment in your life, and I'll move. I'll take you to that moment, okay? And I want to understand what happened then. Uh, it's when you still working your part-time job, and then you decide today is the day that you want to become independent and run full-time coaching 8 years ago. Tell
Yeah.
us what happened on that day that made you
Yeah.
decide like that to make every
And
yeah.
it's I mean it's yeah, like it's like layers, I think, because the way I remember it, it's funny, like it wasn't necessarily a day, but it was leading up to, I suppose, like a day where I realized, okay, like this is something I want to do full time. When I was in my coaching certification, I realized what the power of coaching can be. That as a coach, I could help people who are feeling stuck in their lives for different reasons. I can help them get unstuck. And I can help them explore new paths, not give them the answer, of course, because coaches are not directive. We don't, tell people what to do, but we will help them to explore. So I realized I had, that there was a lot to be gained from being on a journey with somebody and helping them explore and helping them to come to the decisions that are already within them. Kind of like Anne pointing that out. You already know what to do. Now in my work, I help people do that. It's helping create a safe space for them to explore and let those decisions come out. And through the work that I did, like my first level certification, it was a 6-month program. So it took a long time. And I had to have 2 volunteer clients. So not paying clients, but ones that would agree to be the, kind of source for the assignments I was doing, the coaching work. And I had to record my sessions and then have them analyzed by like my buddy coach, my supportive coach. But I realized through working with these volunteer clients and the challenges and the struggles that they were working on, I thought it was about halfway through, and I wish I remembered the exact moment, but I just remember about halfway through realizing I just don't want to blend this with other work. Like I really want to do this full time. And I was scared to do that because I had only ever worked for large national like organizations. Like I worked for a big bank, one of the big 5 banks in Canada. When I was working for the Canadian Cancer Society, yes, they were not for profit, but they were a large national not for profit. I always had benefits. I always had a salary. I always had vacation. Now I was starting to realize, okay, if I want to do this independently, I'm going to have to set up a practice to do it. And that was ultimately very scary in the beginning because I thought, I don't have a salary anymore. I don't have benefits. I don't have vacation. I'm basically starting from scratch with this. But I believed in the work so strongly and the power of being able to help clients like the volunteer clients that I had. That's what motivated me. It motivated me to be uncomfortable for a long period of time in the beginning, like financially uncomfortable because I was not making any money in the beginning.
And drink a
I
lot
was
of
starting.
coffee, right?
What was that?
And also drink a lot of coffee in the first 2 years.
Yes, that's right. Yes, lots of that. And I mean, I was very, very fortunate at the time that I had the support of my husband at the time. So I'm separated now. But at the time that I started, I mean, had it not been for his support, actually, I would not have been able to start. And so, I was able to, with his help, I mean, be able to get a start building a business because you don't just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to write on a piece of Bristol board, I'm a coach and I'm going to stand on a street corner and hope that people come to me. It doesn't work like that. It takes a long time to build a reputation. Like, coaching is a competitive industry, and in Ottawa, there's lots of coaches. It's a very supportive coach community, but yes, of course it's competitive. I mean, there's obviously a lot of coaches with lots of specialties in Ottawa. So, I really needed to engage the support of a number of people, certainly the support of the small business program as well. But, it just wasn't a doubt for me. It was like one of those grounded decisions that just kind of land plunk, like in your belly. And I've experienced that in other times of life too, when a decision comes from such a grounded place, I can literally feel it in my belly.
Oh.
And then I just know it's right. Even though there's no guarantee, and starting a business, there was no guarantee I was even going to survive, because the statistics are very strong the other way. I don't know, is it like 90% of small businesses fail in the first year here in Canada? It's very strong. And I thought, do I have what it takes to be one of that smaller percentage of people that survive? And every year the stats just it wasn't a pretty picture. The percentage of people that make it to year 5 was so super small compared to the number of people that started. So I was taking a big risk by starting, but because I believed in the work so strongly, I was willing to be uncomfortable, and I was willing to learn from the discomfort, and I was willing to make adjustments as I needed to in order to build a practice. And it was one conversation at a time. It started off very slow, but then it started to build. I started to form relationships with some organizations that then gave me business. I'm very grateful to those organizations for their help. So, and a lot of that is due to the network. Where did I get my clients? From my network. They were from people that I knew and people that those people knew. So I had to not be afraid to ask for help. I mean, when there's a lot of limiting beliefs that come with starting something new. And one of the biggest limiting beliefs, and I work with clients on this, is the fear of asking for help, thinking, oh, people are too busy, they're not going to be able to help me, or, oh, how can I talk to somebody really senior, they're not going to have time for me, or, oh, I don't know how to have these conversations, so I'm just not going to do them. If we allow ourselves to get swept up by our limiting beliefs, it prevents us from taking action. And if we're not taking action, we may be putting ourselves far away from that thing that we really want to do. And so I've never looked back. I mean, I will be celebrating 8 years in business in July. So
in July also, what day?
When did I start? July 7th.
Oh, so 4 days after your birthday.
Yeah.
So many things to celebrate in July.
Exactly. Yeah. Lots of like holidays, but then also these other occurrences. And, I just have never looked back. And there was one person actually in my life who at one point said, have you ever thought about just getting a job? And I thought, but this is my job. My business is my job, and I'm growing my business, and, I've been grateful to be able to grow it in different ways year over year. And that's, there was a lot of hard work that went in there, but there were a lot of people that helped me along the way. And so I'm just incredibly grateful to my network and people that they introduced me to. And, so many people help along the way. So now when people come to me and they say, oh, and actually last week I met with somebody, he just finished his coaching certification. He wants to start his business, and he's a friend of a friend. And, he said, can I just have some time with you just to pick your brain? I'm like, sure. I call that, I don't know, have you heard of the expression pay it forward?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's paying it forward for me, helping other people in the way that I remember I was helped.
Wonderful. Michelle, Uh, you start the business from zero, all right? Despite
Yeah.
all the statistical number, how dangerous it is, how scary it sounds to be, 90% of the business went bankrupt in the first year, right? And
Yeah.
then you build the business beautifully by one conversation at a time, one client at a time, one new network person at a time, one cup of coffee at a time too.
Lots
Yeah.
and lots of coffee.
Yeah. So after 8 years, and then you are about to celebrate in 3 months, right? How do you feel about that new journey for you?
It continues to be rewarding for me. On so many levels, and it's less like the reward for me, although yes, there is reward in being able to build something from scratch and still have it afloat today and not be bankrupt. Like there's a lot of pride that goes in that. But really, if I think of like day over day, it comes back to why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like that's the big reward for me, that I got into this line of work for a very good reason. The two career transitions that I had at first closed doors for me and then opened up new doors, new possibilities. And that's really my why with my clients. I say to my clients, like, everybody deserves to find work that gives you energy for, an organization that believes what you believe in. And the work that gives me energy is helping people carve out their next steps when they are unsure of what to do when they're looking for work. It's working with leaders that maybe don't feel confident leading, maybe are ready to leave leadership positions because they don't think they're great leaders, but they just need some help and a conversation partner to help them develop those skills. I love seeing the progress of my clients, or even if somebody says, like, just thank you for being there for me today. I've had clients who have come to me after and they say, you have an uncanny ability to check in on days that are just crap days for them. I remember I had one client in particular that said that, and he said, I never understood. It was almost like he thought I knew what was going on in his life, but like I didn't. I would just wake up one day and think, oh, I should check in with him. I haven't heard from him in a bit. I wonder how he's doing. And it just was like the time of my check-in gave him the motivation to continue his job search because he was at a very low point on that day. And that happened several times with this one client. It was really funny. So, I go back to, like, this is why. Do you see my sign?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it.
So finding joy in the journey, like, certainly that applies very much to the work I do with clients, but I mean, that's me too. I have found joy in this journey of entrepreneurship, of coaching. And I do say journey very purposely because, when you start in something new or you start a business, it's not an event. You don't just you don't just do it and then walk away and say, oh, I'm not going to do anything different now. Like, as a coach, I'm continuing to learn. I sign up for webinars. I take new certifications. Like, in the pandemic, I got certified in the foundations of team coaching. You know, something new, something like where I can evolve myself. And even with my business, like last year, I worked with a business coach for a little bit just to help me grow my business in a different way, look at it, from a different perspective. And so that growth, that journey doesn't stop.
Yep.
It's not, one thing. It's something that you just continue to evolve with. And when we're open to the signs, like what my friend said, years ago, I think you should get into coaching. Like, we all have signs around us, and oftentimes we discard a lot of those signs because we're either rushed, we don't have time, it's not the right time in our lives. But when we pay attention to those signs, they might mean something. Maybe not right then, but maybe later on. And so, when we're open to the journey, we can learn and we can really grow from that.
Beautiful, beautiful. open to the sign around us, right? That's where my first boss told me opportunity running in front of our eyes every moment, right? It's whether or not we can
Yeah.
see it and then we can catch it on time. That's it, And the one who catches faster will get the opportunity. The one who see it first and be able to catch it will win. So I have two last questions for you, Michelle.
Yes.
All right. My wife and I, we've been on the quest to help people to improve their ability to think because we believe that every good change starts by the good way of thinking and the good practice of thinking. So you have been not only yourself but people to get better at what they do, and we want to pick your brain on this. How have you been helping yourself to improve your ability to think over the years?
That's a great question. Um, I like what works for me is doing some reflection and like on an ongoing basis, like being able to, sometimes it's just like looking at the end of the day and saying, okay, what worked well in this day? But if I could do today all over again, what would I do differently? And so, having the ability to sit back, like slow down our thinking. Sometimes we're in so much of a rush, we don't do this. But being able to slow things down and be able to take stock of, what are we grateful for in this moment? What is an area of opportunity that we might want to focus on tomorrow? I take that reflection to an annual basis as well. And there's, I don't know if you've heard of something called, it's called 10Q.
No.
And it's 10 questions at the end of 1 year that you basically answer a question every day. They're all reflective questions. Like, for example, what was your greatest achievement over this year? What is the one thing, or what is the one person you want to build a relationship with next year? And so it's like reflective, but it forecasts. And what happens is you get a question every day. It's a different question every day. There's only 10 in the series. And what happens at the end of the 10 questions is your responses are locked in a vault. Oh. And then what happens the next year, like a whole year later, the vault is unlocked and you get your answers back. And so you can actually reflect back and you can see, okay, was I on track with some of those things? Like the things that I said I would develop over the next 12 months? Did I do those things? Well, why didn't I do those things? And it's a great way to take stock of what's important in your life. Where do you want to make some shifts or changes or developments? And then when you see all of your answers unlocked 12 months later, like you almost forget about what you put in, right? Because it was a whole year before. But it just brings to the surface, okay, yeah, here are the areas that I was able to change my thinking on, or I was able to develop. Here are some areas where maybe I'm still stuck. And it is a great way to shine a spotlight on those things, the things that you want to celebrate, but then the things that maybe are so challenging that they require additional attention. So I would say that's probably like two ways that, I just continue to evolve my own thinking, and certainly conversations with individuals like yourself, where you're learning new things, you're hearing new perspectives, you're receiving new insights. Those are all things that influence how you approach the world, how you show up in this life. And again, those things are not events either. We don't just stop learning. Like, we need to continue evolving our ways of thinking. We need to keep evolving our skills and, developing areas in our life, so that we continue to, feel fulfilled, experience new things. That's what life's all about.
Thank you very much. Very beautiful. And I would definitely look for the 10Q to take a look at it. And then I will share that with my wife and the people in my networks also, because I think it's important. Thanks for sharing
Absolutely.
that. So
I'll send you the link LinkedIn so that it will take you right to the site. It's really quite interesting. It does completely make you stop and think and reflect. And so it's a bit of forced reflection, but It's so eye-opening, especially when you get those answers the next year. It's wild.
Very kind of you. Thank you very much. The last question. So we knew that the little Michelle, when she was in high school, fall in love with accounting, right? Then got disappointed because she couldn't get the major in accounting. But then life moved on, so she took another major in English, and then career. Get into the
Yeah.
job for 18 years, got her first bad experience about career transitions, and then got a lot of learnings and support in that journey, and then that leading the way on to what you becoming doing now, and
Yeah.
celebrating the 8 years of like purposeful work that you help people to find job, to help themselves to navigate through the world of works and get better and be better leaders also. And thanks for doing that. We want to know the future a little bit. All right. Is there anything, Michelle, you are working on you want to share with me and the audience so that we can celebrate with you in advance?
For sure. And that's so kind of you to want to do that. I mean, it just goes back to my earlier comment about the network and how magical it is. The network is generous. So thank you for that. I would say like the biggest area of like development that I'm working on this year is so I'm very grateful to have some partnerships, and one of the groups that I do a lot of work with, they're called Stratford Group, and they are promoting a team effectiveness program that I am going to be co-leading for some clients. And so this is a partnership with Leanne Davey, and I know you know Leanne because you interviewed Leanne. So we have a very exciting new, very brand new partnership that like just started really like late last year, like in the fall of 2022. And so we are partnering with Leanne and her team effectiveness work, and we are going to be able to bring it to clients. So we're super excited about this work with her, and that I'm part of that as well. And so definitely something to celebrate over the next year. I'm really looking forward to that.
Wow, and I'm sure that whoever got in that program will be very, very well taken care of. You and Leanne.
So, like, there's such a need right now for like leadership development, but also like really working with teams, like not groups, but like actual intact teams, and finding out like what helps this team to be successful, but what stands in this team's way. And so, how do you help that team remove the roadblocks so that they can be more effective? And when people feel like they're part of a team, they're working together, like they tend to want to stay. They want to stay with the organization. They're doing good work and they're being supported at the leadership level. So that's what makes this program really special, is that it comes at a time where like people are leaving jobs because they want to work for companies that, really do have better, well-aligned values to their own, or stronger leadership. This program is a way of keeping people and grooming them and keeping them within the organization to do some really great work.
Wow, and I wish that collaboration between the partnership between you and Leanne will accelerate, will bring joy to both of you and your clients, the clients that you guys serve also. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, such a pleasure to spend time with you, to knowing your journey and to learning from you. And thank you so much for being so generous to spend your time joining our show and share your stories with our audience.
You're welcome.
I am grateful for that. And please send our hugs to your kids, and then tell them that enjoy the upcoming Mother Day. And we'll get back to you on July to it's a big month to celebrate your birthday, the anniversary of your organizer, your company also, right?
Thank you. It's so exciting. And, it's just been such a pleasure to be able to talk with you today. And I think, like what, like what you and your wife are doing, like, being able to share, a lot of insights with people, especially, individuals who maybe have some similar experiences or maybe similar struggles and learn some new strategies to be able to help with that. That is, a reward for you to know that you're helping, lots of people by doing this.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you and your family in person one day, either in Canada or Vietnam. All right.
Exactly. See, when you come to Toronto, you just have to go a little bit further east. That's it.
I remember. I remember. I definitely will go there one day soon, Michelle. All right. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.